So, hello everyone. I'm very happy to be here today, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank the French Embassy, the University of Zimbabwe, UNESCO, and National Museum and Monuments to allow this operation and to organize this workshop. I'm very happy because this is my first time in Africa. So one of my first presentation, and I would like to also apologize for my very strong French accent. If you do not understand what I'm saying, please stop me and ask me to repeat. So first I will present you my lab, what we are doing in the French Laboratory of Research for Historical Monuments. Then especially on in the Rock Art Department, what is the deontology policy framework and the role we play for historical monuments. So the Laboratory of Research for Historical Monuments is based in the stable of the Castle of Champs-sur-Marne. It's between Paris and Euro Disney to have an idea of where we are located. So it's not in the center of Paris. And this lab has been created by Jean Tarallon, who was an inspector for historical monuments. Inspector of historical monuments are the people who are coming on a restoration work and who are saying this job is good, this job is not good. So there's a big boss, in fact. So he decided in the 70s that historical monuments needed a lab dedicated to the research for their conservation. So of course it depends on the Ministry of Culture and Communication and on the General Direction of Patrimony inside the French Ministry of Culture. So as I said, this is a lab that is dedicated to research on conservation for cultural heritage. We are about 40 people working in this lab, and we are specialized in 9 departments specialized on material that we can find in cultural heritage. We have a documentation center, and our budgets come from most of it from the Ministry of Culture. We also have money for research when we apply to national or European call for a research program. So Marcel Stefanaggi was our first scientific director, and he was working for the mural painting department. Okay, so all the departments do not have been created at the same period, but you can see that rock art was one of the first. One of the first because in the 70s, the crisis was a little bit behind, but there was the crisis of the Lascaux cave and the crisis that led to the closure of the cave to public. So as you can see, we have different material in cultural heritage, and some of the section of the departments are quite new, let's say, compared to the old ones. Okay, so the lab has 3 missions. First, assistance and support to people that are in charge of the conservation of cultural heritage. So we work on identification of material. We carry out sanitary assessments. We also practice decade diagnosis, and we sometimes do environment monitoring. We work in a research program, as I said, mainly dedicated to deterioration phenomena, and we work on the efficiency and durability of conservation treatments. We also carry out scientific assistance for those who are, as I said, in charge of cultural heritage by either our mission of assistance or by training course. So we are teaching in different universities, but also in different French institutions dedicated to cultural heritage. Okay, so the corpus we work on is about 44,000 buildings and 260,000 objects that are registered as historical monuments. Of course, not all of them have problems of conservation, thank God, otherwise we are just 40, we wouldn't be enough. In each region in France, there is the French state, sorry for the mistake here, fill up a mission of scientific and technical control on conservation and restoration operation. So basically they try to do it by themselves, I mean controlling and the restoration, but when they have complex problems, then they can call our lab, and so we make a visit in situ, and we define a mission. So you can see different colleagues of mine, this is me, so my colleague from the stone, from microbiology, and from mural painting. And so we go in the field and we define our mission with the people in charge of the conservation of the monuments, and we help doing the scientific and technical control. So the lab is a scientific and technical support within the National Network of Cultural Heritage. So how does that work? Very quickly, you have here a cathedral with a black crust, what we call black crust. So let's say the curator is calling us, we have a problem. So we go on the field, okay, we do a diagnosis, and if this is something we already know the answer, we write a study report that the curator will follow or not, and then you can have the restoration. And if it is a problem we don't know yet, then we have to start a research program, so the answer will be longer to get than in the first case. So our documentation center is very rich, books and congress processing, etc. We have also a picture database. You can find them on the website. Okay, so I brought some brochure from the lab. If you want to take them, just help yourself. Just take it. I'm sorry it's in French because we ran out of the English version. But if you go to the website, you can find the English version. Okay, so if I speak specifically of the rock art department in France, let's say we have about 180 Paleolithic decorated sites in mainland. Most of them are caves, and we just have very few shelters compared to what you've got here. Most of the sites belong to private owners. Only few belong to the state, and we have states that are on let's say co-owner sites, so private and department, or private owner and town, etc. And in fact, very few, only 15, are open to public. And we have about 100 Neolithic shelters and about 6,000 megaliths. Okay, so where are the sites in France? They are mainly in the southwest of France and also in the Pyrenees. Other regions, they do not have that many sites. So why they are where they are? It's because of geology, because most of our caves and shelters are made of limestone. So they are in sedimentary basins, so this is the Parisian basin and the Aquitaine basin. So this explains why most of our sites are concentrated here. In Paris we don't have that many. I mean, the Parisian basin we don't have that many. And for the Neolithic caves and shelters, it's very difficult to know how many we have because they are not registered as historical monuments. Why? I have no idea. I don't know why it's not registered. But most of them are in Dauphiné and Savoie, and in the southeast of France. We have only one cave, that is a Bronze Age cave, that is registered as historical monument. And if we go to still prehistory, but the megalithic part of it, we have 1,500 located here in Brittany, and most of them are located in Languedoc-Roussillon region, which is the south, let's say southeast or south of France. So megalithism, as you know, it's represented by heart, which is outside on Earth, while most of the Paleolithic sites are underground, hidden, because, as we will see, even our shelters are closed. So why our megalithic sites are where they are? It's because also because of geology, because the rock used for megalithism are mainly granites, but it can also be schist or carbonated rock, and we have some few also in Corsica. Outside the mainland, most of the art is represented by engraved or sculpted rocks in Antilles and Polynesia Islands. We have just one cave in Guadeloupe Island, from which you can see the entry. The entry is locked for conservation reasons. We will see later in the input why it's closed. So what is our deontology? As we already heard this morning, rock art is the oldest artistical representation of humanity. It's a witnesses of faith, way of life. I mean, I'm not going to give you a lecture in archaeology because I'm a geologist, so archaeology, I know very few compared to you. And their conservation is essential for transmission to future generations. Anthropological and archaeological knowledge acquisition is also very important because it helps to highlight conservation and it helps to transmit basically the site to future generations. So here you have few examples of what we have for prehistory. So this is a megalith, this is a Gabriel cairn in France, it's in Brittany. This is a rock resources shelter, which is in the western part of France. Here you can see a goat. And of course you have cave, and the most famous one is Lascaux. So our rock art represents a multidisciplinary interest, and this is very important to work together because, for example, I can't do anything without archaeologists because I can't read walls basically. And sometimes when it's engraving, you have to know where representations are. And if I don't have an archaeologist with me to say, hey Stephanie, the representation is here, sometimes I can't see it because I can't read. I don't know. I'm not prepared to. I didn't study to read walls. I mean, in an archaeological viewpoint. So to work, and doesn't matter if it's a cave, a shelter, or a built monument, in historical monuments we follow charters and conventions. The first charter we follow, because this is the oldest one, this is the Athens Charter for the restoration of historical monuments. There are few articles in this charter, but one can apply to rock art. This is the sixth one. It says that before any consolidation or partial restoration is undertaken, a full analysis should be made of the defect and the nature of the decay of these monuments. Each case needed to be treated individually, which means that before any intervention, we have to know why we intervene and how, and on which problem. But the most important charter we follow is the Venice one, who was prepared in the early 90s, and it was adopted by 16 countries. And this one is the most important for us. So there are 16 articles. I'm not going to go through all of them, but most of them apply to rock art conservation. And the first one is the most important because it says that the concept of historic monuments is where we found evidence of a particular civilization, and doesn't matter if it's a very modest work, as long as it is from cultural significance with the passing of time. The conservation and the restoration must have recourse to all science and techniques that can contribute to their study and safeguarding. Their intention in conserving and restoring monuments is to safeguard them not because they are a piece of art, but also because they are evidence of history. And it is essential that the conservation of monuments is based on maintenance and on a permanent basis, which is very important because even in France, some people, because they own an historical monument, sometimes they forget that they have to maintain what they own. As we do the cleaning in our house, sometimes we have to use a broom to clean up a cave. And it also says that items from this art cannot be taken apart unless it is for its own preservation. But we have to make sure we keep the integrity of the site. The process of restoration is highly specialized, and it aims to preserve and reveal the artistic and historic value of the monument. And it has to be preceded and followed by an archaeological and historical study. And this is important because this is the record zero you get. You get the record zero, then you will do recording during the restoration and recording at the end of the restoration. And the point zero is going to be the point that is going to become a reference for you to see if there are any changes during time. And the site of monuments must be the object of special care in order to safeguard their integrity and ensure they are clear and presented in the same manner. All this work of preservation, restoration, of excavation, there is always to have to be very well documented and illustrated by drawing and photo pictures. And this record should be placed in archives of a public institution and made available to research workers. Okay, so that was the Venice Charter, the most important one for us, but for archaeological sites, we also have the Charter for the protection and management of archaeological heritage. So it explains what is an archaeological heritage. It comprises all vestiges of human existence. Legislation of each country should afford protection to the archaeological heritage, and this point is joining the UNESCO Convention. It must be an overriding principle that the gathering of information about archaeological heritage should not be destroyed any more archaeological evidence than it's necessary for the protectional or scientific objective of investigation. And this point is very important because, for example, if you want to analyze or identify pigments on rock art, it means that what you have to carry back in the lab, it's only the pigments that are necessary for the study and the knowledge you want to carry out. So it means that you cannot sample all the paintings you want. We have tools now to lead and organize the sampling and to reduce the number of samples you bring back in time, which is very important for the integrity of the arts. And the convention, when it does apply, we follow is the convention regarding the protection of the world cultural and natural heritage. So as you all know, it's listing cultural and natural heritage. UNESCO is also establishing the World Heritage Fund, which is very important because it can help countries that doesn't have the money to take care of their cultural heritage. It established also an intergovernmental committee, which is the World Heritage Committee. And this committee is in charge of establishing the list and other obligation to state parties. Each state is responsible for the identification, protection, conservation, representation, and transmission to future generations of the cultural and natural heritage situated on its territory. This convention, when you sign it, it means that you agree that there is an international community that gets together to perpetuate cultural diversity, and each state party accepts that a supranational authority can give order or advices to the country and to the cultural heritage they own. In France, we also have a very heavy French legislation because prehistorical sites are immovable properties since the late 80s. It means that they are protected by a law. But the big and strongest law in France is the law on historical monuments that was voted in 1913. And this law is in the Cultural Heritage Code. So this is in the book 6 of the Cultural Heritage Code. But for archaeological sites, we have also to know and respect the book 5 on archaeology. So it's not a very easy part of the work because it's in a different language than the one we use. This legislation is not written by archaeologists or scientists. We also have to follow the civil code because, as I showed you, most big part of our sites are private sites. Environmental code, because in our caves we have bats. Bats are all protected in France, so we cannot kill them even though they are destroying our painting. Or if you do it, you eat it quickly and make no rest on the roof. Urban code, because as it's historical monuments, we have a perimeter all around the area of 100 meters where you cannot build or do whatever you want on your house. You have to have the permission of an architect of patrimony. Public health code, because the guys that are working in caves, they work in the dark. They also work in an atmosphere that contains gas that can be dangerous for health. And of course, because they work, we have also to follow the work code. And this is not finished because we have national authorities. I told you it's very heavy in France. We have International Commission on Archaeological Research that are in charge to study all the application archaeologists can bring to say, I want to study this site. So they say yes or no. And there is a National Commission on Historical Monuments, the 6th section, that gives recommendation about registration, for as historical monument. This is just a recommendation, an advice, because the decree will remain ministerial. We also do recommendation about construction and work we can do in cave or around cave, above cave or shelters. And we also give recommendation about sampling. This commission is controlling a lot of things. But don't worry, not all the caves and all the work that are done in caves are seen by the National Commission. Some of the regions are doing their job on their side, and doesn't matter if there is a national authority. But this one, you cannot escape. This one, it means that if you want to have the key of one site, because everything is locked in France, we will see it later. If you want to have the key to study a site, you have no choice. You need to have the authorization of this commission. So all we have seen define the right and the duty of honor the French state and the scientists that are working on archaeological sites. With that, all of that, the question is, can we really work? Because, I mean, we have laws and everything to follow, and it can be very heavy sometimes, but yes, we can. So in France, we are very lucky because in historical monuments and in rock art, the everyday monitoring is carried out by the region of cultural affairs agents. They either belong to the conservation for historical monuments or to the regional service of archaeology. But the everyday monitoring can be done by the guide when the sites are open to public, or by private owner, because the Code on Cultural Heritage said that if you own an historical site, you are responsible for its conservation. So you'd better look after it properly. And when there is a problem, they call me. So they call the rock art department, because what I didn't tell you, the rock art department is a big word for how many we are, because I'm the only one. So I'm the chief of myself, but which is good because I always agree with my sometimes I fight, inside my head. Okay, so if they need to call me, they call me. So what I do is I go on the site to carry out a sanitary assessment. I identify the problems of conservation and their cause, because you can fix a problem of conservation. If you don't fix the cause, you don't fix the problem. When I can't sample, because sometimes they say, no, Stephanie, you can't sample, then I try to do on-site analysis with non-invasive and non-destructive method. And when I can sample, which gives me more information, I bring back the sample in the lab and I do analysis in the lab. Then I write a report, including identification of the problems and the result of analysis, if there are some, and the preconization of what should be done. But the problem is, in the lab, doesn't matter what is the material you work on, we have the power of proposition and preconization, but we do not have the power of decision. Decisions are made by regional authorities that are the ones in charge of the conservation of the sites. Among the preconization, that sometimes we say you need intervention, and a restorator has to work. So in most of the case, when the cases are, let's say, easily led, we work with the restorator, with who we define the protocol together, and we also define the protocol with the responsible of the conservation. And once the operation is on its way, we can provide assistance if the responsible for conservation require it. So, I told you I do mainly sanitary assessment, and most of my work is to treat problem of conservation. It can be crack, deformation, deposit, variation of climatic parameters, detachment, biological colonization, which is something that I do with my colleague from the microbiology department. When I can or cannot bring back sample, I do on-site chemical analysis or in-lab analysis. Climatic records are done on the field, of course. I can do quantification of the loss of material, identification and quantification of the microbiological activity if there is a colonization. And then we give a preconization. Do we need a construction? Do we need to consolidate? Do we need to clean up? Do we need to do a treatment for biological colonization? And most of my work is preventive conservation. Because believe me, especially with private owners, sometimes you think that they have a brain in their head, but when they come to their site, they take off their brain, they put it on the floor and they enter into the site. Because for example, if you own a cave, you imagine in a cave it's underground, it's high humidity, you have a lot of biological particles in the air. In your cave, you don't put wood because you know it's going to be colonized by mushrooms. No, even my grandma knew that. She never had wood in the cave at home. But in archaeological sites, sometimes you can have benches for public to sit down and look at the sculpture. So of course, the bench is totally rotten. But no, it takes 3 years for the owner to take out the bench and burn it. So it's not that easy to do preventive conservation, but most of the time it's just common sense, honestly. When I do preventive conservation, I have to check if the site is open to public or closed to public. And so I have to check if the construction to admit public is okay or not, and if there is one, simply evaluate the climate impact of human presence in the site. My colleague from the microbiological department, they do a survey to evaluate also the human presence. We check everything, if something is running, if water is running, if there's something on the floor. We do a lot of photography because the eye is not something really reliable. Photography are. And sometimes when they ask me, but it's very rare, I work on the 3D and reconstitution to public when the sites are mainly close to public. So when they are close to public, the climatic survey is easier because there is no perturbation of temperature and everything, but we check the same things. And sometimes, and it's really fun in this case, when I work with archaeology, I do some archaeometry, so they can ask me the identification of material. What is a rock? What are the pigments? Is it a cross, deposit, efflorescent? And to know the answer, is it natural or anthropic origin? So this is a lot of fun because it's always fun to see archaeologists when you say, this is anthropic. That's great, because it means, and apparently, we bring a lot of information to them. Okay, so I told you that I work with the microbiology department. So cave and shelters are open systems. They are in constant exchange with their surrounding environments. And they are often favorable toward microorganism development because they are not open, as they are here. As they are contained in the air, microorganisms will deposit on wall and soil. And if the environmental conditions are favorable, they will develop. And they will develop in an anarchical, you see what I mean? In disorder, and then we have a problem of conservation. We have a problem of conservation when we have a visual problem, when we see something with our eyes. If we can't see something, there is no problem. Because they are open, it doesn't matter if we have microorganisms, as long as they do not develop. So with my colleague from this department, we go once or twice a year on site. We do visual control of soil and walls, and they do aerobio contamination control, analysis of sediments in order to know the global flora of the site. So they use a sort of vacuum cleaner where they will absorb a quantity of air in caves or shelter, it doesn't matter. They know the number of liters of air they are taking. All the particles, the biological particles, come and stick on a cultural media, a specific one for bacteria, algae, or fungi. And they also do it with what they call a liquid absorber. So you also absorb the air of the cave. All the things go into a liquid media because this is, in this case, this is a solid media. And back in the lab, they identify, they count, and they tell us how many, for example, fungi we have. So this is a cave that is in the south of France. This is their point of sampling, so for air and then for the floor. And so they give us, after that, this is the point of sampling, and this is how many microorganisms we have. So as you can see, we have a lot at the entry, and this is the color of the time they sample. And you can see that when you go at the end of the cave, you have less and less microorganisms in the cave, in the air. We'll have the occasion to go through all that again. Our shelter in France, I told you already, they are closed. They are closed for different reasons. They are closed for vandalism because archaeology is a very big business, parallel big business in France. If you go on eBay, you can find a lot of lithic objects to be sold. So they are closed with a roof and walls. And they are also closed because it helps to get them out of the outer condition, environmental condition. Because in France, it can freeze, it can snow, it can rain, it can be hot, it can be everything. And all of them are closed. This is the plateau shelter that you probably know. And the only one that is open, but I can't tell you about its conservation state because I don't know this site. They never called me, so I've never been. I could have asked by curiosity, but I don't have time. It's open. And if you look at this stage of conservation, you will see that in fact you can't read walls as you can't read them, for example, in this shelter. All the engravings are fading because nature is not here to keep the cultural heritage. Nature basically doesn't like walls, doesn't like things in equilibrium. Nature likes things that are flat and on an erosional equilibrium line. So what is the advantage, and we will have time to talk about that more, what is the advantage of protecting shelters? If there is a protection, the advantage is natural hazards are slightly temporized. It's easier to control if you use the right material, because we will see that in France we will not always use the right material to protect our sites. The problem is you lost the reading in natural light, which is how shelters have been done. They were done to be seen in the natural light. And unfortunately, the containment is favorable to microorganism growth. Because you close it, you never change the air basically, or not a lot. So microorganisms are very happy when it's contained. If there is no protection, the advantage is it's the reading in natural light. There is no containment for microorganisms. And even if there is a gate around, public can walk and see the site. Because when it's closed, if you don't know the one who has the key, and if you are not one of the privileged people that can work on this site, if you are an X person, you can't access to this site. But the problem is they are directly exposed to natural and human hazards. But even if it's closed, believe me, when someone wants to enter a site with bad intention or not, or if it's just curiosity, they can enter. Doesn't matter how is the door, how is the gate, you can enter, because they are in outside cities, of course, they are where no one is walking around, so you can do what you want. All right, I thank you for your attention.